orphan girl and how she managed to create her homestead. And this time, well, let's see if the impossible can be accomplished. So the story is titled, oops, I've lost it. The story is titled Zone of the Future. And no, I won't reveal anything. You'll just find out as I'm reading the story, okay? And today, I will read it to the very end, even if we are crossing the time limit, okay? So, Nikolai Ivanovich, the head of a high security penal colony, simply put, a prison, has not left his office on time for 5 nights. When the workday ends, he turns off his phone and paces around his office in contemplation back and forth. Sometimes he sits down at his desk, picks up a green folder and rereads its contents for the umpteenth time. In the name of a group of convicts locked up in cell number 26, a prisoner serving a sentence under Article 931 of the Criminal Code of the Russian Federation has come to him with a suggestion that is at first glance inconceivable. That prisoner, whose name is Kodakov, has suggested taking 100 acres of abandoned or unused pasture land, surround this land with barbed wire and erect towers at the corners. Basically, do everything you're supposed to prevent escape. On these 100 fenced-in hectares, 90 prisoners would work farming. The applications from those wishing to do this were in this folder. These prisoners, by their statements, were obligating themselves to provide vegetables for the entire colony, giving up half the crop they raise for the colony's needs. They asked that the other half be given to their families. There was nothing impossible in this yet. In different colonies, the prisoners worked in production. At some, they make something simple in woodworking shops. In others, sewing workshops were organized, and the prisoners sewed simple things like vests and trousers and received a small wage for their labor. Small also because their labor was not very productive. The proposal in the folder was this. The prisoners wanted to farm. Well, that could be done too. Payment for half the harvest was possible. They didn't have to work at a loss. They could put their output up for sale and then live for months on the money allocated. But then, after that, Prisoner Kurakov, in the name of the other prisoners, asked that the 100 acres be divided into 1 hectare plots, and each plot be assigned to a specific prisoner. Then he proposed that each prisoner be given the opportunity to build a single cell on the plot allocated to him. At the end of their sentence, those who wanted to stay on their plot could ask for that opportunity and have their surplus harvest purchased, not levied, and the prisoners who served their sentence would be given the opportunity to expand their cells. The green folder with this proposal or request had been passed on to Nikolai Ivanovich 6 months before. Apart from the 90 statements and the text of the proposal, the folder contained a plan for the future plots, beautifully rendered in colored pencil. The drawings depicted the guard towers, the barbed wire, and the checkpoints. After an initial reading, Nikolai Ivanovich had put the folder in his bottom desk drawer, and from time to time he returned mentally to its content, but he hadn't given the prisoners an answer. Something had happened, however, that had forced the colony's director to give intensive thought to the prisoner's proposal every day for 5 nights running. The situation was the following. An order had come from his superiors as of the following year to begin to expand the colony, build additional cells, and be prepared by the end of the next year to accept another 150 convicts. With the order came a plan for adding on to existing buildings as well as financing timelines. The plan proposed using prison labor in the construction. Nikolai Ivanovich reasoned as follows. The financing is going to be held up as always, and there is a problem with cheap materials. They do the estimates on one set of building material costs, and when you start the construction, they're different. Prisoner labor is not very productive. The order obviously cannot be carried out, but I can't not carry it out. I have 5 years to go until the end of my service. I've risen to the rank of colonel. I have been colony director for 20 years and not a single reprimand. And here you have an impossible order. But these circumstances were not the chief ones in the colonel's contemplations. The green folder. In his memo, prisoner Korakov had asserted that according to his plan, in its confinement to the prison of the prisoners, the main objective of such institutions would be met, the rehabilitation of criminals. The fact that modern correctional facilities did not rehabilitate criminals, but rather quite the opposite, honed their criminal skills, Nikolai Ivanovich knew well. Otherwise, they would not be getting second and third sentences. This last seriously preyed on Nikolai Ivanovich's mind, since he had given so much of his time and effort to his service. Life was passing by. His service was coming to an end. And what had he done? Apparently, he had raised criminals. The green folder. There is the rub. If only he could be firmly convinced of its unacceptability. But no, something inside him would not let him reject it. Yet he couldn't be convinced of it either. It was an unusual, unconventional proposal for sure. First thing the following morning, the colonel ordered that prisoner Korakov of cell number 26 be brought to his office. You may sit down, Citizen Korakov. Nikolai Ivanovich pointed to a chair as the prisoner entered under guard. I've just been going through the contents of your folder. I have a specific question for you. Yes, sir, Citizen Director, the prisoner said quickly, raising from his chair. Sit down, the guard ordered. Yes, you sit down. No need to jump up as if you were on trial, the colony's director said calmly. And turning to the guard added, you can wait outside the door for now. So, Sergei Yurievich Korakov, you are submitting this strange proposal here. It only looks strange at first glance. In fact, the proposal is quite rational. Then tell me right away, bluntly, what ruse have you dreamt up? Are you trying to create the conditions for a mass escape? Among your 90 statements, each has a sentence of from 5 to 9 years. So you want to bring your freedom closer? If there is any ruse in this proposal, then it is unconnected with escape, citizen director. The prisoner rose again and became agitated. You have misunderstood me. You must sit calmly. And let's drop the citizen director. Call me Nikolai Ivanovich. I know from your file that you are Sergei Yurievich. You were a psychologist. You defended your dissertation and then went into business. You were convicted of grand larceny, right? I was convicted. Nikolai Ivanovich, at the beginning of perestroika, things were, before you could get used to certain laws, others went into effect. Oh, all right. We're not talking about that now. Clarify your idea of this agricultural zone behind barbed wire. Or what else could we call it? I'll try to clarify it, Nikolai Ivanovich. Only it's hard for me to do that for a certain reason, which is, you understand, we've read a book, and it's called Anastasia. And then another book, the continuation. Basically, the book talks about man's purpose, about how if each person took a hectare of land and created a heavenly corner on it, the whole earth would be transformed into a paradise. The book speaks simply and convincingly about this. How could it be simpler? If each person took it and created something, then of course the whole earth would be transformed. Only, what does this have to do with you? That's what I'm telling you. It's all set out convincingly in those books. Someone who has read them quickly might not understand everything. We have time. We have read, discussed, and understood them. Well, and what of it? After reading these books, many people will want to acquire land and create their own heavenly oasis on their own land. They are at liberty, and this is within their reach. That's why we decided that even though we are behind barbed wire, we too could each take a hectare, work on it, and beautify it. By way of punishment, we could give up half or even most of our output for the needs of the colony or society. But we have a request that this plot not be taken away from us when we finish out our sentence, if we want to stay on it. What's this? So you're going to live out your life behind barbed wire, under the guards' rifle barrels? When everyone's sentence ends, you can remove the barbed wire fence and move them and the towers to another place. Settle new prisoners wishing to establish their own homestead in a new place, so we can stay where we are. Aha! And then their sentence will run out, the barbed wire and towers go to a new place, and they remain in their free homesteads, right? Yes, that's right. This is some kind of fantasy. Do you think that I, the colony's director, am going to create heavenly oases for my prisoners? Do you believe something like this can happen? I'm absolutely certain of success. As a psychologist, I am certain, and I feel it with my heart. Judge for yourself, Nikolai Ivanovich. A man serves his 9 years and is released. He has no friends. His friends are in exile and in cells. Neither his family nor society at large needs him. Who would want to give a good job to a former prisoner? Plenty are unemployed who have different professions. People are lining up at job exchanges who have fine work histories. A former prisoner has no prospects in society. There's only one way: to take up where he left off. And he does. And he ends up back with you. I know you are stating the obvious. Tell me, as a psychologist, why have prisoners who have read these books suddenly changed and decided to take land even behind barbed wire? The prospect of eternity has opened up for each one. People seem to think a man is still living even in a cell. In fact, he isn't. He's dead because he has no prospect for life. What is this prospect of eternity? I'm telling you, it's hard for me to set out everything in the books at once. Fine, then I'll read the books and sort out what kind of lyric has inspired you. Then we'll talk. Guard, take him away. Prisoner Korakov rose, put his hands behind his back, and asked, "May I ask one more question?" "Go ahead," the colonel said. "When we developed the plan for this zone, we took into account existing instructions on detention of prisoners. There are no violations of the instructions in the plan." "Great. You took the instructions into consideration. No violations. I'll check." "Take him away," Nikolai Ivanovich told the guard. Then he called in the lawyer, handed him the folder and said, "Here, take this. Familiarize yourself with it and determine whether it contains violations of the instructions for detention and report in 2 days." 2 days later, the lawyer was sitting in the colony director's office. He began his report with language unusually streamlined for a lawyer. "The problem is, Nikolai Ivanovich, that from the standpoint of the law and the instructions regulating the detention of citizens in so-called places of incarceration, this project cannot be interpreted unambiguously. Unambiguously, what a word. Why are you waffling here in front of me, Vasily, like a lawyer in court? You and I have known each other for 15 years. Nikolai Ivanovich rose from his desk. For some reason, he was slightly agitated. He took a turn around his office and sat back down. "Tell me specifically how the law and instructions are violated here." "Specifically? Well, to be specific, I have to say this in order." "Say it in order, then." "We build a prison zone. The plans call for isolating the territory from the outside world. 2 rows of barbed wire fence off the zone's 100 hectares, which is patrolled by guard towers. In general, the enclosure of the prison zone wholly corresponds to instructions. The plan goes on to propose dividing the zone up into individual lots, 1 hectare, and allocating each plot to 1 prisoner. What's there to say here? According to the instructions, we are supposed to accustom irresponsible citizens to labor, to build workshops to make the simplest goods, and then to set up farms and shift partially to self-financing. According to the law, institutions like ours are allowed to have special terms for economic activity and the multi-purpose use of the forest fund. In our case, the plan calls for a farm that will provide our wards with vegetables, which perhaps some left over for sale. So far, we are within the framework of the law. Don't drag this out. Keep going. Where do we go outside the framework? It proposes building a separate cell on each plot where the prisoner will live who has been allocated his hectare of land. Yes, exactly. A separate cell for each person on his own hectare. There is not money for normal beds. They want a separate cell with all the conveniences and furnishings. A utopia. You must not have read the plan carefully, Nikolai. What does not carefully mean? I remember it by heart. I don't know. But a blueprint is attached here, and a description of the interior of each separate cell, so to speak. Everything is strictly according to instructions. Bed, toilet, table, chair, bookshelf, stool. A metal door with a peephole and an external bolt and bars on the windows. As for the financing, it says specifically that each prisoner will finance the manufacture of his single cell himself. That wasn't in the plan when I read it. I don't know. Here, look, it's here. Both the drawing and the working blueprints for the manufacturers and the description. What does "it's here" mean? When I gave you the folder for you to familiarize yourself, this was not there. I remember precisely that it wasn't. I've gone through this folder 10 times, cover to cover. That means you, in 2 days. Yes, Kolya, I did. Not in 2 days. They gave me the same folders 3 months ago. Recently, I made my own corrections and additions, and they agree with them. Why didn't you tell me anything about this? But you only asked me to give you my opinion 2 days ago. Oh, all right. Then tell me, what do you think of all this? Here's what I think, Nikolai. If this plan is carried out, then the number of prisons and labor camps in the country will be diminished and crime reduced. And you, Nikolai Ivanovich, will go down in world history as a brilliant reformer. You can forget about history. Get to the point, the legality. Nikolai Ivanovich rose from his desk once again and started pacing around his office. The lawyer followed the pacing prison head, deep in thought, and asked, "Why is it, Nikolai, that you are so agitated?" "I'm agitated? Why should I be agitated?" "Actually, you're right, Vasily. I'm agitated. I just don't know how I'm supposed to report to the general about this project in a brief report." That's really something. So you have decided to promote it nonetheless, since you're going to see the general? I am. I thought you would criticize the project and talk me out of going to the general. The weight of the world is off my shoulders. You too apparently support it, right? I do. That means I'll have to go. Nikolai Ivanovich summed up rather joyfully, as if he'd been afraid that his friend was going to criticize the green folder's contents. The director went over to the cupboard and got a bottle of brandy, a lemon, and 2 glasses. Let's drink to success, Vasily. When did you start feeling so sympathetic toward this green folder? Not right away. Nor I. My daughter is studying law at the Institute. She's writing her thesis now. Her thesis topic is the effect of holding citizens in places of incarceration on eradicating criminal acts. She gave me her paper to read, and in it she writes, 90% of the citizens serving prison sentences go on to repeat crimes upon release. The main reasons for the painful statistics on crime are the following: the person's upbringing, which led to the commission of a crime; the difficulty of adapting to society after a person has spent time in a place of incarceration; the formation of a criminal worldview during the time the person is in a criminal environment. Can you imagine what she's written, Nikolai? She's saying that you and I, while honestly performing our service, are shaping a criminal class. We aren't shaping anything. We're acting according to regulations, laws, and instructions, although you know that I too hold a certain dissatisfaction. I've tried to drive it out of me. I thought this wasn't any of my business. But when this green folder showed up, I thought about it for 6 months. Now I've decided I'll go see the general. Unfortunately, I've sat down several times to put together a more intelligible report, but it's not working. Let's try together. I think the main thing is not to frighten the higher-ups with the plan's originality or singularity. It should be as simple as possible. I agree. It should. But how, if they're asking for each prisoner who has served his sentence to keep his allocated hectare of land after release for lifetime use? Yes, that point cannot be met for now. There is no law in Russia right now about allocating land for lifetime use. I was thinking about that point. We have to tell them honestly. At the time of the end of their term, the question of allocating the plot of land to the free prisoners will be considered within the framework of the land legislation current at the time of their release. I think they'll understand. It's clear to everyone you can't jump higher than the law. We aren't writing laws, but we also have to talk about the trend. Everything right now is leading to there being a law allowing people land ownership. God willing. Nikolai Ivanovich refilled their glasses with brandy. Let's have another short drink to success. They clinked glasses, and suddenly Nikolai Ivanovich put his glass on the table and once again started pacing around his office. What's got you going now? His lawyer asked. You see, Vasily, Nikolai Ivanovich spoke with alarm in a rush. Here you and I have been dreaming like little boys about lofty matters. We've been dreaming and forgotten that we're dealing with criminals. Of course, among them, there are those who simply went astray. Perhaps they do want to start their life within the law, but the bulk of them are brutes. They're thinking about something completely different. And what cunning do we see in them here? I've thought about that too, Nikolai. But let's you and I check them out. Then you can decide whether you should take the report to the general. How will we check them out? Here's how. Tell me, when did they give you this folder? About 6 months ago. That means they discussed this plan more than 6 months ago and did the drawings and blueprints. Then they put everything handsomely into the folder and attached 90 declarations. Let's assemble those who wrote declarations in the auditorium suddenly, without warning. We'll invite specialists, agronomists, and farmers, and let them test them. They'll ask questions about how, what, and when to plant in the soil, and we'll see how many want to answer. You see, if they're serious about all this, and if there's no catch to this idea of theirs, if this is their dream, then they couldn't simply sit and wait 6 months for an answer to their proposal. They will have had to have studied agricultural production. You're the limit, Vasily. To think that brutes would study how to plant flowers and cucumbers for 6 months. It's hard to believe. Someone from the countryside might answer, but those men? That's what I'm saying. Let's check them out before you decide whether to go to the general. There were 200 prisoners sitting in the auditorium, not 90. By the time the colony director had invited specialists in agricultural production, 2 teachers from the Agricultural Institute and 1 from the vocational school, the number of men wishing to settle in the new zone had risen to 200. The prisoners sat, not suspecting that they were now going to be given an exam. They saw 3 men sitting at the table on stage, but they had no idea who they were. The prison director came on stage and announced, in connection with the fact that we are proposing setting up farming, we need people who know something about agriculture. Basically, I present to you teachers from the relevant educational institutions. They will ask you questions, after which we will decide whom to give a plot of land. Nikolai Ivanovich introduced the teachers in turn and suggested they ask questions of those gathered. First to ask a question was the elderly teacher from the agricultural school sitting on the right. Which one of you, sirs, can tell me when tomato seeds need to be planted in order to cultivate seedlings? When should the seedlings be planted in the ground? And if you know the expression transplant, then tell me, please, what signs speak to its necessity? Well, he certainly let them have it, thought Nikolai Ivanovich. Multiple questions. Even my wife, a confirmed summer person, probably could not answer a question like that from memory. She's always checking her books before planting anything. And here the audience is sitting in silence, not a peep out of them. The silence in the auditorium upset Nikolai Ivanovich, for in his mind he wanted the prisoner's plan carried out. He had become so captious toward the plan, not because he rejected it, but because he wanted to eliminate all its flaws and defects beforehand. The silence of the auditorium spoke to the careless attitude toward the project among its main participants, and that meant the impossibility of carrying out what was set forth in the green folder. Great, they are silent. Is there really not a single man from the country? Although even in the countryside, it's the women, not the men, who work in the gardens. In order to relieve the extended pause, Nikolai Ivanovich rose from his table and said sternly, "Didn't you understand the question?" "We did," a young prisoner sitting in the first row answered. "If you understood it, then answer it." "Who should answer? You didn't call anyone to the board." "What do you mean, who? What board? Whoever knows the answer should raise his hand." In an instant, all 200 prisoners sitting in the auditorium raised their hands high. At that, the examining teachers, who had been talking amongst themselves, froze. Mixed emotions flooded Nikolai Ivanovich. Here was pride in his words, a return of hope for the plan's implementation, and alarm. Would any of those who had raised his hand be able to answer the question correctly enough? "Why don't you answer?" He gestured toward a young prisoner who had spoken. The young man stood up. He smoothed his bald head with his tattoo-pricked hand and without hesitation began to speak quickly. "The time to plant tomato seed for cultivating seedlings cannot be the same every year. It depends on the onset of stable weather without frosts, and this weather is different from year to year. Considering the necessity of planting seedlings in the soil before the plant blooms, and knowing their vegetative period, we can calculate the time for planting seeds for cultivating seedlings in greenhouses or on a windowsill." "That's enough, young man," the vocational school teacher interrupted the prisoner's speech. "Raise your hands. Who can continue?" Once again, those sitting in the auditorium raised 200 hands. The teacher pointed to an elderly prisoner who looked like a hardened criminal with a gold crown in his mouth. "Oh, I have one too." The prisoner rose and began gravely. "The soil for them has to be good, not just any old crummy spot. You have to take humus, worked by worms, or peat. Only you can't plant seeds in peat soil like that. They get used to the peat fast, and then later they go crazy when they're planted in the garden because it's going to be different for them. That's why you should mix the peat with a little sand and dilute it at least by half with soil from the garden. And you have to warm their earthy nest to 25 degrees before you poke the seed into the ground." "That's enough," the presenting teacher interrupted him. "In principle, you spoke accurately, but let's let the next man continue." And he pointed to an intelligent-looking prisoner wearing glasses from the third row. "So your previous colleague stopped at the point where, before planting a tomato seed in the soil prepared for it, what must you do?" The prisoner, who had risen from his seat, adjusted his glasses and continued. "Before planting the seeds in the soil prepared for them, they have to be taken into the mouth and held in your saliva under the tongue for at least 9 minutes. The examiner sitting at the table and the colony director froze in surprise, staring at the prisoner in glasses. After a brief pause, the teacher from the institute asked, "Do you mean to say that before planting seeds in soil, you need to soak them in water?" "Never in water, especially chlorinated or boiled water, where all the vital bacteria have been killed. You must soak them in your own saliva in order to fill them with information about yourself. In a person's mouth, in his saliva, at body temperature, the seed, after 9 minutes, will awake from its slumber and immediately understand what it is to do and for whom it will bear fruit. If the person has any health problems or abnormalities, the seed will try to bear fruit that eliminates the abnormalities. The teachers sitting at the table spoke animatedly among themselves. Then all three turned to Nikolai Ivanovich, and the vocational school teacher asked, "Who held classes with your wards? What institution did you invite specialists from?" Even several days later, the colony director could not understand why he had blurted out this answer to that question. "I don't know which one. I didn't do that, but I know it was from the capital. A distinguished professor came." The prisoner sitting in the auditorium appreciated the colony director's fib. They realized he was defending them. He wasn't letting them laugh at those who spoke and supported him silently with gratitude. But the young prisoner from the first row added, "We thought he was an academician, not a professor. He also knows a lot about the Siberian taiga, about life." "Yes," the prisoner's neighbor added, "a very smart guy, a real scholar." Approving exclamations were heard from the different ends of the auditorium regarding the professor from the capital, who no one had ever laid eyes on. The institute teacher sitting at the table on stage, who had been silent this whole time, suddenly spoke with a clever look. "Yes, colleagues, I have had a peek at this theory, though I don't remember what the source was. Science is now working in this direction. I think there's something intriguing in this. Body temperature, vital human saliva saturated with a diversity of living bacteria. There is something to this." Yes, I'm remembering," the vocational school teacher said thoughtfully, and also with a clever look, pretending that he too had heard something. "This is one of the new trends in vegetable production. Theoretically, of course, there is science at its base, but it needs to be viewed in practice." The prisoner sitting in the auditorium replied without hesitation to many questions on agricultural production. Their answers weren't always standard, but the outside examiners were no longer in any hurry to protest them. On the contrary, they listened with interest now. When the colony's deputy director escorted the teachers out, Nikolai Ivanovich sat alone quietly at the table in front of the still auditorium. In the silence of the room, he leafed through the green folder. Then he looked around and said, "Here's what I'm going to say to you men. Your idea isn't entirely clear to me. Yes, not entirely. And so I've decided, basically, I don't know what will come of this, but I'm going to try to promote it with my superiors." As if on command, the quiet room suddenly stood up and broke out in applause. Not expecting that reaction, Nikolai Ivanovich stood up as well. He was embarrassed for some reason, although he felt good and joyful deep down. However, trying to hold on to his image as a stern and even strict director, he said, "What is this noise? Take your seats." He himself felt the inappropriateness of his excessive severity in this situation and added, "But we really do need it to invite a professor from the capital." General Pososhkov, head of the penitentiary administration, received Nikolai Ivanovich and immediately got down to specifics. "Not only you, but others too are going to have to expand their institutions, some by 5 to 10 units, some by 150, and you must prepare to receive an additional contingent in a year. Everyone is reporting that it is hard, unrealistic, and the prisoners are overfilled as it is. But what would you have me order you do? I have a decree from the minister to provide for the reception of an additional 6,000 prisoners. But you have cheered me up, Nikolai Ivanovich. So you say you will be prepared to receive them right on time?" "Yes, I will. Only the plan has to be changed. I set it out in my report." "Yes, I read it. Only I don't understand everything in your report. You want to engage in agriculture. Praiseworthy. Allocate a separate plot to each prisoner. But who's stopping you? Why do you need my permission? But the fact that you want to build separate cells on each plot looks rather odd and irrational. Build a common barrack or two. In the morning, they go to work under guard, lower costs. You're not going to get additional financing for separate cells. But I'm not asking for additional financing. What are you asking for? Approval for a single cell on each plot and the overall plan. But where will you get the money to construct these single cells? Sponsors will help. You have strange sponsors. Well, all right. I don't have the time to go into this. I'm writing, look into and complete on your draft. But I'm going to call them myself and tell them to look into it and complete it properly without any delays. Is that all you have? There's one other problem. Now, what's that? I don't have land where we can farm. Then go to the governor and ask him. I saw his deputy. They're considering it, but for now, just considering it. All right, I'll help. I'll put in a call. Is that all you have? Yes, sir. Then get to work. Good luck. Ivanovich's prison received the land 200 acres before fall. Before the roads got bad, they managed to surround the arable land, which was far from settlements, with barbed wire on 5-meter posts for a perimeter. Nikolai Ivanovich realized that if they didn't set this up in the fall, it would be impossible to start the spring work on the plots. But how could they do that even if the dirt road stopped 2 kilometers shy of the allocated parcel? They couldn't get the equipment to drill holes for the post or get the workforce to the allocated parcel. The prisoners learned of the problem and they went to the colony director with a proposal. They would dig the post holes by hand and they would travel the 2 kilometers on foot under guard. Even in the cold fall rains, putting on ponchos they'd made themselves from tape and plastic, every day 50 prisoners headed in a column toward the allocated land. More wanted to, but due to the shortage of guards, only 50 could go at a time. The plot's future owners worked with total devotion. By the time the frost set in, all the posts had been set, the guard towers built, the barbed wire stretched. They had also prepared the lumber for the checkpoint and put it up. In the fall, an order was put in for the manufacture of small huts, single cells for the prisoners to live in. Each cost 30,000 rubles. There was no money left to buy them. The prisoners themselves sought out funds however they could. Some, of course, had savings on the outside. Some were helped by relatives, but there were also those who had no way to get that kind of money. They went to the colony director reporting on their readiness to live in tents, but this contradicted instructions and they were refused. So 180 huts were brought to the new zone over the frozen road and set up on piers the prisoners had built in the fall. In the early spring, 180 prisoners settled in these primitive huts with bars on the windows. One sunny spring day, standing on a guard tower, the colony director saw something unusual. 180 parcels had been laid out on 200 hectares, surrounded by barbed wire. They were separated by 10 pegs and branches. Here and there, the plot's boundaries were marked by stretched wire. Those are the wealthy ones, the colony director decided. Their relatives got them money not just for a cell, but also to fence it off. Paths ran between the plots, and in the middle of the zone lay an area for assemblies. Here and there, in low-lying places, the snow had not yet melted, but on the knolls, the first grass was already green. Men's solitary figures were black on nearly every plot. In their warm prison vests, rough caps with ear flaps, and crude kersey boots, they seemed identical and faceless. What could these figures do on empty land? Why should they sit quietly in their cells? The colony director brought his binoculars to his eyes and started watching one of them. Prisoner Korokov cutting his shovel into the not entirely thawed earth, was digging a hole. Nikolai Ivanovich moved his binoculars and counted 19 holes already dug in the frozen soil of the plot's perimeter. On the other plots, the figures in dark vests were doing the same thing, digging holes along the perimeter of their plots. Why are they digging so many holes? Ivanovich said out loud. That's for the saplings and bushes that will create a green fence for each plot, the sentry explained. I see. But they might have waited a week or two. The land would have been thoroughly thawed and then digging would be easier. That's what I told them, but they don't want to wait. They're afraid they might not make it in time. For each to plant 400 meters of green fence is no joking matter. And when the earth thaws, they'll have to work on their gardens. The colony director watched for a lot longer and how eagerly and even fervently his words were working. There is obviously a cosmic connection between the soul of a human being and the soul of the earth, he thought. If there is that connection, man is in harmony with the planet. If there isn't, he isn't. Perversions begin and crime increases. Of course, that book, Anastasia, is something unusual. The prisoners read it and something inexplicable blazed up in their souls. I also read it and started to look at life differently. Of course, the book plays its part, and they are now reading it in all the prison zones. But after all, the book's power consists in the fact that it points to the connection between the human being and the earth. That means the main thing is this connection, and it must not be broken. All these discussions of lofty morality and spirituality are nothing but empty talk without this mysterious, still not entirely clear connection. In the fall, all the plots of the new zone, as the prisoners themselves called it, were framed with small saplings of apple trees, pear trees, mountain ashes, birches, and other plantings whose leaves pied fall coloring created a picture pleasing to the eye. Tree saplings covered approximately 15 to 2,000 square meters of each hectare. By the first fall, the view of the 200 hectares from the zone's tower had changed drastically for the better compared to the spring picture of vacant black earth. It could be clearly seen that behind the rows of barbed wire, an unusual green oasis arose. All summer, fresh greens were supplied to the prison cafeteria from the zone, then cucumbers, tomatoes, and beets. In the fall, each prisoner turned in from the plot of land entrusted to him 5 sacks of potatoes and several dozen jars of salted cucumbers and tomatoes. The prison kitchen received enough beets, carrots, and radishes for the whole winter. One could observe something unusual at the new zone's checkpoint. Unlike all the world's prison checkpoints where parcels for prisoners are received, in the new zone, the handover came from the zone. Soldiers handed out jars of preserved vegetables to the prisoners' relatives. Many came in cars, and went away with a rich harvest. Those prisoners who didn't have relatives nearby gave their harvest to resellers through the soldiers and earned a decent income. But no one came to see prisoner Kodakov. He had no relatives. He was a children's home boy, and he asked that his part of the harvest be taken to the nearest children's home. Nikolai Ivanovich received the administration's gratitude for successfully carrying out the decree. He was the only one who had been able to accept an additional 180 prisoners without a deterioration in the conditions for maintaining the rest. The year past had been the busiest for Nikolai Ivanovich in all his 20 years of service. Apart from his usual tasks, he had to get a hold of seeds and fruits, tree saplings for the new zone, but each time he rejoiced when the prisoners' old ZIL arrived, loaded to the top with small saplings. Another 5 years passed. One sunny July day, a helicopter hovered over the new zone and began circling. Ivanovich stood by the checkpoint and watched the helicopter fly over the new zone. He knew that on board the helicopter were General Pososhkov and members of a Justice Ministry Commission. Either someone had written a complaint against the colony director, or rumors about the criminal's unusual detention had begun to circulate. The high-ranking commission disembarked from the helicopter, which had landed on the helipad near the checkpoint. Nikolai Ivanovich thought only about the zone's enclosure. Yes, I'm going to be hit with an obvious violation here. Why did I even allow them to plant these climbing perennials to fence off the zone? They've climbed 3 meters high on all the barbed wire and formed the green fence so that the barbed wire can't be seen. You see, the barbed wire had created an ugly view for them, and the sentries had planted their guard towers with climbing flowers. Flowers now climb all the way to the sentry's booth. The zone looks less like a prison and more like a heavenly oasis in the surrounding neglected fields. Here you have the first blatant violation, the general from the ministry said. What kind of zone enclosure is this? Anyone who wanted to could climb over an enclosure like this, covered with liana, the general said, turning to the administration chief, Pososhkov. Any soldier can tell you that. Am I right? The ministry representative addressed the lieutenant on duty standing at the checkpoint by the entrance. May I answer, Comrade General? The lieutenant on duty was standing at ease. Answer when asked. Is there a violation of regulations here? Not at all, Comrade General. In this case, you're seeing a tactically improved enclosure for a prison zone. What's that? The ministry commission member said in amazement. What kind of tactical improvement is that? What are you going on about? All the commission members stopped by the lieutenant standing at ease by his post. Here is a joker, said Ivanovich, thoroughly vexed. This Lieutenant Prokhorov is always going on with his little jokes. If only he hadn't cracked jokes in front of the commission. Now they are definitely not going to forgive me his mockery. And he's standing at ease and isn't even blushing in his impertinence. The lieutenant began, emphasizing each word. Allow me to answer the question about improvement. Answer if you can, the general from the ministry ordered. You mean your flowers are a tactical improvement? Yes, Sir Comrade General. A criminal who wants to escape and has decided to climb over this barbed wire fence that's entwined with flowers might climb over but won't be able to get far. Why is that? The general wondered. While they are getting over the fence entwined with fragrant flowers, they are entirely saturated with their fragrances so that even an inexperienced dog can easily pick up his trail and bring him back. So he gets saturated. The general began to laugh, and all the commission members started laughing with him. So the dog follows the flower's fragrance. Well, good for you, Lieutenant. Very resourceful. And how many escapees have your dogs brought back this way? The general asked through his laughter. Not a one, the lieutenant replied and went on very gravely. Understanding the full hopelessness of climbing the fence, in 5 years the criminals haven't made a single attempt to escape. The lieutenant amused the commission members even more with his serious look and statement. You mean there hasn't been a single escape attempt in 5 years? That's right, not a single one. The commission members obviously liked the lieutenant's witty answers, and they asked him the next question. Tell us, Lieutenant, if criminals don't even try to escape from this zone, then why do you have the watchtowers and armed soldiers? To protect the zone from the outside world. The lieutenant answered. What does that mean? From the outside world? Does anyone try to get into this zone? Yes, sir, the lieutenant reported. Many prisoners' wives have expressed the desire to live with their husbands in their cells. Some have asked to spend the summer in the cell with their children. But strict observance of our colony director's instructions for holding prisoners does not allow that kind of outrage. Some of the more unenlightened wives try to climb through the green fence with their children or tunnel in. But the zone's guard does not permit these kinds of audacious attempts. Not sure whether the lieutenant was speaking in jest or seriously about prisoners' wives and children trying to break into the zone. The commission chairman asked Nikolai Ivanovich, have such instances in fact taken place? Yes, Ivanovich replied. 2 attempts have been intercepted. I've received 96 statements from prisoners' wives requesting that they and their children be allowed to spend the summer on their husbands' plots. But we can't allow anything beyond the visit sanctioned in the instructions. But what attracts them to the zone and with their children too? The commission chairman asked, and he added, actually, gentlemen, let's go in and take a look around. Open the gates, Ivanovich ordered the lieutenant. The wooden gates, decorated with carvings, were quickly opened. The commission members entered the zone after taking just a few steps. Suddenly, without consulting each other, stopped. From the helicopter window, the zone looked like a pretty green oasis. But here it was not only the handsome paths of cut grass, not only the green, multicolored living enclosures that struck the commission members. The delightful, subtle fragrance of summer flowers and plants enveloped these people who were used to the smells of their offices and the streets of the capital. The silence was broken only by birds singing and insects buzzing. These sounds soothed rather than annoyed them. We should go into one of the plots, the commission chairman said softly for some reason, as if he were afraid of disturbing someone. The high-ranking officials walked down the path of the first plot to the cell hut. The small wooden hut was fitted with metal bars, but you could only tell that when you came up very close. From far away, it looked like a green knoll, entwined with various plants and surrounded by flowering bushes. It fit harmoniously into its surroundings. Then I just want to bring it to the end and not go into other details. When does your sentence end? They asked a prisoner by the name of Karlamich. In 11 months and 7 days. How do you plan to live afterward? I've written a request asking them to extend my sentence. What do you mean extend it? Why? Because there's no liberty there. And that liberty, there is no order. There is no liberty without land. But who's preventing you from getting out and acquiring land and creating the same kind of place, only in freedom, raising a family? Oh, Citizen Director, that is something I just can't understand. Who in Russia is keeping us from giving each Russian a hectare of land? I just don't understand. Does the Russian land belong to the Russians or not? Right now, according to a law passed by the State Duma, each person can buy land, the woman deputy told him. But what if I don't have the money to buy an entire hectare of land? Does that mean I have no homeland? Is that how it works? I don't and won't. If Russia is my homeland, who should I be buying it from? It seems that someone seized my entire homeland and all of it, every last hectare, and is now demanding a ransom from each Russian. It's like negotiating with bandits. This is not right by law or by our ideas. Take you, citizen director, Karl Lamich addressed the commission chairman. You're a general. I can see from your stripes. Free your homeland from whomever seized it and is now demanding ransom. Or are you going to pay the ransom for your piece of the homeland too? Prisoner Karl Lamich, stop this discussion. Ivanovich intervened. Saw the scar on the cheek of the former battle general turn red and his fists clench. The general walked up to the prisoner and they stood and looked at each other in the eye. Stood there and said nothing. Then the general said softly, "Show me your farm, Russian." And he added very quietly as if to himself, "Your piece of the homeland behind barbed wire." Karl Lamich showed the commission members his young orchard with fruit on the branches and treated them to currants and raspberries. He had beds of tomatoes on more than 200 square meters sown with cucumbers. He showed them his pond, which he had dug with a shovel. Next to the pond were neatly stacked kegs. Yeah. This is Karl Lamich's main piece of know-how, Ivanovich explained to the commission. As he pointed to the kegs, he salts every year 150-liter kegs of cucumbers, and he makes an excellent brine, unsurpassed, and so on. Yeah. So yeah, he sells them at 50 rubles per keg. 250 goes to Karl Lamich and the rest for prison needs. How much income does each farm yield for your institution? One of the commission members asked. On average, about 100,000 a year, Nikolai Ivanovich replied, but half goes to those working on the plots as stipulated in the contract. 100,000, commission member said in amazement. And altogether you have 180 hectares, which means that every year you take in 90 million from them net? Yes. That means the prisoners get 50,000 a year apiece? Yes. In our country, we have more than 1 million citizens being held in places of detention. If only we could move all of them to this kind of wage, the country would have quite an income, and by all accounts, there would be significantly fewer criminals. Move them all? Another commission member joined in the discussion. Here we have a different question. How to keep them from shutting the zone down? Why were we sent here? To sort things out. We have definite abnormalities here. Prisoners are living in better conditions than free people. And these prisoners, no matter how you put it, are criminals. So what are you going to do, Ivanovich, when these men's sentences are run out? The colony director replied without hesitation, if it were up to me, after their release, I would let each one keep his funds. I would remove the wire and move it to a new place and set up a new zone. In their report to the ministry, the commission members reported that they uncovered no violations of the instructions for detaining prisoners. What about the reports about the criminals living in better conditions than many free citizens? The minister asked. The life of free citizens must also be improved. People should be given land, indeed, not words. But that is not within our competence. Let's get to the point. Yeah, here's the point. We must introduce this experiment to all the institutions entrusted to us. I agree with this as well, the female State Duma deputy said, supporting the chairman. She added, I also have firmly decided to submit to the State Duma for consideration draft legislation allocating to each Russian family so desires a hectare of land for lifetime use for setting up on it their homestead. The Duma passed the law. In a united impulse, millions of Russian families began planting gardens and groves on their native land, and Russia blossomed. In what year did this happen? What? It hasn't yet? Why? Who is stopping it? Who is not letting Russia bloom? Wow, what a story. So the impossible seems to be possible. Are you still around, people? I can't see anybody.
Yes, Irena.
Good. So
Wow.
it's been long, but I think it was worthwhile. Let me know.
True. It was really, really wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I mean, there's so much to learn. When these books are introduced to
Mm.
anybody, then there will be a shift that happens. The connection with Mother Earth, and uh, when we tend to Mother Earth, we tend to take care of our own selves. So it's very, very beautiful how one prisoner had got this thought, and how all the in the auditorium everybody knew the answer. And they're well equipped. They have like Sonia's story, like Sonia,
Yeah.
how she was prepared, like how everybody around her were giving her the tools and the
Yes.
magazines and
Supporting her.
everything.
Mm.
So in the same way, how these prisoners, everybody were given some tools like these books, and the tools of information of how to grow the plants and everything is really, really amazing. It's a very inspirational story. It is the impossible. It's the impossible. And I really like the way the prisoner at the end, he was speaking about, oh, I would like to extend my sentence, I would like to stay
Yeah.
more because I experience freedom here, like. So true that. And I can surely say that after reading this book in 2019, the beginning of 2020, there was a strong calling even for us to have a small garden plot, and then we have released it to the universe, and that is how we manifested it in a year's time, that we have this garden plot here in Heidelberg. We named it Anastasia's Garden. So yeah.
So you had read this story before? The
No, no,
prison.
no, 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 no. No, I didn't read this
I
part.
mean the book,
The book, the starting, the
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 start.
first the,
Yeah.
the first book itself inspired us. The way Anastasia is speaking about the seed, and how the
Yeah.
seed gets all the information,
Yeah.
and how important it is to have a land, how important it is to have a trees. Like fruits, and like all these things have inspired us to have a small garden. Yeah,
It's almost like an epidemic,
yeah,
right?
yeah. True.
Like an infectious disease. What a wonderful infectious disease it is. And it's like really working everywhere, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So great. Are you the only one left?
No, no, no. Uh,
I don't see anybody else on my little.
Malti ji, there is Sumti ji and Svanna ji. One
So
second. If you
people,
if you want to share, please go ahead. Svanna
yeah,
ji, please go ahead, Svanna
yeah.
ji.
Yeah.
Hey, hey, Irena. Hi, Madhuji.
Hey.
Hey, yeah, it's a beautiful here and there. I was able to uh, follow, but not really the whole summary or whole understanding I got was how the prisoners got the skill sets in the area of farming, and how could they use that knowledge and come out, and they can build their own land, and raise their family. Uh, so from that I feel like, yeah, we can create hope and life in everybody's life, irrespective of where they are, what they did, how bad their life was. So I think even when Patriji was there, some people went to prison, and and taught meditation, you know. So, they can just sit and meditate, right? It's the best place to meditate. And write books. Some people wrote books and all. So, that is the little bit gesture of what I could follow. Sorry, I might have missed some things. So if you can summarize, Irene or Madhuji, that would be great. But yeah, thank you for the beautiful reading.
Good. So, my mouth is a little bit worn out from reading all of this. And I really feel that, you should try to make an effort to be present, to pay attention. Then, because now you are demanding of me to do the whole thing again, kind of.
No, not whole thing, but yeah, I can listen again and think no, I don't mean that, Irene. No, I understand you, right? Fully. But yeah, I know some things demands and we have to juggle here and there. It is what it is, but I understand you completely.
Well, the gist for me is that it seems to work miracles on a human being, that he gets his own connection to a piece of land and then starts working on it, and how that changes around the prisoners' attitude towards work. They set out and really dug in. I mean, they really, really, really stretched themselves in order to get everything set up in time. In a country where the ground freezes half of the year, it's frozen half of the year, and you can't work it at or anything on it. So yeah, that is what I'm the gist that I'm getting of it. It seems to be something inherent in us, a need inherent in us, because we are half made of earth, the other half made of heaven. So, we have to somehow develop a relationship to the earth that gives us the food we eat, we put into our bodies. So it's somehow, for me, it is it rounds the circle of life, if you know what I mean. I mean, the meditation is the other part. It's the connection to the higher realms, to the divine. But the connection to the soil is nurturing us in another way, but it's as necessary as the meditation. So meditation and planting a garden, I think that's a very, very, very good couple.
Understand. Exactly. Yeah. Totally agree with you. And if we have an intention, and if that is what you need to do, then it will come to us, right? It's just to have a intention. And
well, I think my sister, you can start it anytime, anywhere. I don't have a garden. I have a tiny balcony, but I'm grooming plants on the balcony, and I have a lot of plants now inside, and that's how I start my garden. Mm-hmm. And when I have a garden, I will move all my plants there.
Exactly. True. Even yeah, we have a big garden, but it's a shady area, a lot of trees. It doesn't grow, but slowly I'm extending. But my inside, I just want to go in the middle of my lawn and then plant something, but my husband wouldn't allow. Oh, don't spoil and all. Everybody are different, and everybody may not like. But my intention didn't stop. So slowly I moved this year. I planted some beautiful flowers. I'll show you a little bit, and some tulsi plants and some ash
Yeah.
gall. let me show you a little bit. Ash god, small ash god came every day. I see it, and a lot of bees are coming and they are
Yes.
enjoying the garden. So I
Yes.
said, like, at least some bees are enjoying,
And how are you feeling while you are doing that? That's the most important point.
Exactly. So I just enjoy, seeing it. One small ash cat came, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you
Yeah.
blessed me this time." So
Yes.
see a small little garden, flowers. So I'm thinking slowly, I will extend my garden to this middle of this lawn. So,
But
so
do it sneakily without your husband noticing.
true. That's what I did this year. When once it grows, they will have. They don't say anything because.
Yeah,
This is
exactly.
my puppy. They don't say, but now, yeah, because seeing this ash god, I don't think he's gonna remove that. People are not that bad. See, small ash god came. A lot of bees. Do you all see? See, a lot of bees every day. I come and see. Okay,
I don't see
they're
that.
enjoying. So see, all this tulsi plant, everything is like just spread on this fence. So uh, flowers.
Oh, wow. Yeah, nice.
Hello, Irena. It's Malati.
Yes. How are you?
No,
I had to go off in the middle because I needed cooking. Okay.
Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
cooking
but
influence.
today was a very nice. Uh, oh, let me see. Let me switch off the thing. I can bring her later. Uh, uh, Today was a sunny day and windy, but the wind was warm actually today here. It is 24, it was. And so I decided to go out on the deck and do some gardening. I'm not able to go down the steps because my legs are all, my knees are all swollen. So I need help to get down the steps. I can't do it on my own. But I can water the garden from the deck. I'm able to do that. So I watered all the plants today and made sure they are all okay. Talked to them today, uh, and
Yeah.
then did whatever weeding I can do. Okay, from where I was standing, making sure I don't fall down. That is the main thing, right? Okay, and I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Doing that
Great.
today. Mm.
Wonderful.
And next year I'll put some vegetable plants.
Great.
That
And
is my target for next year.
great.
Mm.
Tatastu.
Yes, tadastu. That's nice, Malti ji.
Mm.
You are
Mm.
motivating us, and you are, love of plants and vegetable gardens. So,
Mm. Even though
I
my
see.
health is not very good to do all that, okay, right? I couldn't. I mean, I can't be sitting inside the house all the time, saying, my legs are hurting and my knees are hurting and all that. I said that is ridiculous, and so I had to go out and do
yeah,
some gardening today.
as
Yeah.
long as you start doing it, everything, your health will be covered,
Mm.
taken
Exactly.
taken care.
Mm.
Exactly.
So you
Mm.
just have to, you have to have that intention and do. So you feel that you will go like maybe 20 years back.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tatastu.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
So we have Mridula ji also wants to share her
Yeah.
experience. Yes,
oh,
Mridula ji, please go ahead.
But you have to unmute yourselves.
Yeah, Mridula ji, please go ahead.
Ah. She's
Yes, you can unmute yourself, Mridula ji. Can't hear you. Yeah, now
okay.
yes.
So I'm sitting outside. It's a very nice sunny day for me.
Yeah.
And
Beautiful.
I'm trying to change so you can see. So this is my
Your garden.
my plant bed in the front. And because I can't do a whole lot because of my own health, I have this little stool I sit on. But they're beautiful flowers, and I just had them trimmed. And it makes me happy to see this. So I understand when no matter what you do, it's just I like, coming and seeing, and then touching the trees. This is the tree. Yesterday I touched the tree and thanked the trees, and I just like doing all that and sitting here out. These flowers, even though some days I can't come out here, they're still blooming. And it's so nice. So
Great.
I understand, the effect of the plants and how can you see me? I don't know.
Yes,
Yes,
we
yes.
can see you. You are looking like a flower.
Roaming around in my front yard. I came out today. It's a beautiful day. It's so sunny.
Where are you?
I'm in Texas,
Uh-huh.
in
Yeah.
United States. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a warm day today. So, but I thought I'll see. I missed most of the reading. I listened to it on tape, but no need to, But I just heard the last part of you summarizing how, even different, wherever we are, doesn't matter. We can still appreciate the beauty of nature.
Yes, and imbibe the balm that it gives us,
Yeah.
It's a balm to our soul somehow,
Yes.
right?
It's healing.
It is healing. That's it.
It's healing, and it's
Healing even to brute criminals.
Yes, that's what I said. In any circumstances, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the previous predetermined experience. It changes immediately when
It
you're.
changes us. Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I just joined late today. Sorry about that, but I wanted to hear.
You can sorry for yourself.
However,
Sorry.
we have the YouTube. We have a recording. So
Okay,
Yeah.
you see,
so we have
you can do
those
it
who
in
have
your
missed. Those who have missed, they can once
Yeah.
again listen to the recording.
Right.
Ah,
Right.
Nice to see you, Irena. I wanted to just see you today. That's all.
Okay.
I'm sorry about I missed the whole session for myself, but I will listen. I will listen to the recording.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see you and Swarna, and Madhu disappeared. She
Hi,
had
Mrudula ji. Happy to see you too.
see you. Madhu was just there. Where did she go? We see all
Yeah,
white.
yeah. I'm here. Laddie.
Okay. All right. Okay,
So,
then.
Okay.
that's close for today. I have no idea what is coming next week, but
Hi.
something will come up.
Yeah.
Be surprised.
Yes. Looking
Okay.
for. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And come on.
Okay.
Bye
See you.
bye.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, Swarna.
Bye,
Bye,
Salama.
Mrudula ji.
And
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Take care.
bye. Namaste.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Is Ananya there? Never mind.